welcome to Pondering Psalms. We're taking a look at Psalm 120 today. It is a psalm of ascent. The pilgrims ascended into Jerusalem used during festivals. And also, it's one that really explores peace. And so I'm looking forward to our discussion and so glad that you are joining us. Well, we're looking at Psalm 120 today, and I'm here with my very good friend,
Curt Austin.
And I am
Steve Holt. Sorry.
And I'm David Mullins, and we are taking a look at Psalm 120. And this begins a special section in the scripture. You looked at that, or did you, Curt? Did you look at?
Yeah, I actually did.
Series?
Is it
okay.
14?
Yeah,
the next
120
14
through 134.
Yeah. The Song of Ascents. Really beautiful.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. They're all fairly short. And I thought, well, that makes sense because these were for the pilgrims, they believe, for the pilgrims as they're heading up to Jerusalem. And so it's almost like a short little chorus in some ways.
And you get in your head all of these folks walking together and then just start kind of singing, So we're going to sing this song together and kind of motivating as they move forward, reminiscent of from where they come, reminding them this has been part of the journey. It's and their journey to Jerusalem, the Song of Ascent. Is it for the Passover festival?
It could be, or it could be any time. I mean, I'm not sure. Scholars keep trying to figure out exactly when these things were used, and it's interesting because scholars aren't really sure, exactly how they were used. I think they believe it was after the exile. So, were some of these created even when they couldn't go up to Jerusalem? I don't know. That would have to be a question. You come up with these questions like that, and it's like, well, let me research that. But I didn't think about that question until right now, so have not researched that.
Well, it's for the festivals. It's for I do know that from what I've researched they were used. They were used. Now, whether they written during that time or at another time, but they were used for going into going into the holy city, preparing for a festival, preparing for time together of worshiping God. And that's reflected clearly in what you read. Now, not always. Sometimes there's some kind of hidden meaning that you may not know about. But I've already read ahead 3 or 4 just because it's like, ooh, how do these tie together?
Yeah.
Ooh, look at that. And it's really exciting.
And that's one of the things scholars try to do. Is there a theme? Well, the theme is Jerusalem, really. The theme is their hopes. Their theme is their dreams, the reality that they really want to live into. So, well, are we ready to dive into this one?
Very much. Let's go.
Psalm 120. And here we go. Wait, where are we?
I don't know.
Here we are. Here we are.
I'm back behind.
There we are. There we are.
Nice. I took my troubles to the Lord. I cried out to him, and he answered my prayer. Ooh, I need to open my Bible. I've got notes.
Ooh, notes. And this is, it's interesting that this is where this section of Psalms start. The fact that God had answered a prayer, took my troubles to the Lord. And, I think everyone watching this has probably taken their troubles to the Lord. And the psalmist here saying, I cried out to him and he answered my prayer. That's his testimony.
Mm-hmm. So in verse 2 is kind of a recap of the prayer. He says, "Rescue me, O Lord," from liars and from all those deceitful people.
Yeah. My right now as a family, my daughter's with us right now, and so we're watching through. I'm told we're going to watch all 40 seasons of Survivor. I've never seen the show. But one of the, if you've ever seen Survivor, Curt, I don't know. Have you ever watched Survivor?
40?
Yes.
All 40?
Yeah.
Well, and that's not 40 years worth. I mean, because they would do 2 sometimes.
Yeah, it's like 20 years worth or something, or 19.
Oh yeah, we were huge Survivor fans.
Okay.
My daughter's best friend in junior high was the niece to Rupert.
Oh, okay.
And so we got really sucked in. We really, because we had this personal connection to one of the contestants, and we've met Rupert in different locations. He started a not-for-profit down here in Indianapolis, and so we've been by to visit. We've talked.
Does he still have the restraining order against you?
I asked you never to talk about that again.
We met him.
Hurtful.
We met him.
We met him in the shrubs behind his house.
Yeah.
And we've talked to him. He does like the state fair and home improvement shows. He's hanging out at Rupert's kids, the not-for-profit tent, and so you get to talk to him. So yeah, he was a cool guy. So anyway, your question was, have I ever watched it? Yes. And then you were telling a story, and I apologize.
Well, no, that's fine. The whole thing, one of the big things of Survivor is deceit. They don't say that it's deceit, but it is. And one of the things I read this week talked about lying and deceit really crumbles all social aspects of life. And I think, if we've ever had someone, I mean, they keep saying, oh, we lie because it's a game. You're supposed to, it's expected. It's that's one of the values, so to speak. But you know what? In real life, if someone lies to you and is deceptive, oh my goodness, it can be devastating. It can be devastating.
That's a great, I love that parallel, Dave. As I was reading through this, I didn't think about it in that context. And that's really helpful for us to put this in are we in the 21st or 22nd century? What century are we in now?
21st.
Okay. 21st century, a 21st century mindset of where we then say, how does this psalm speak to me? And then you take that and you say, if I'm going to take my troubles to the Lord, one of them very well could be that I'm having a problem with not trusting people because they've lied to me. Yeah.
Exactly.
God, rescue me from these liars' lips and from those deceitful people. And they are all around, right? I mean, that's been the kind of the catchphrase for the last 4 years, right? Fake news and all this.
Yeah.
Nothing's true. What's true? We don't know. And it comes from all directions. And it doesn't, I don't know. That's great. That's really helpful.
Yeah, and then he starts actually talking to the deceptive tongue. What will God do to you? How will He increase your punishment? And can you imagine your tongue being pierced with sharp arrows and burned with glowing coals?
No. Yeah, verses 3 and 4 are kind of a separate. As I was reading some commentary on this week. I haven't done that for a long time, but it was really interesting that verses 1 and 2 are this prayer that gets them started, and verse 3 and 4 is kind of the life's struggle that this person's facing, and the punishment that he believes is going to happen if God is actually going to live up to what he asks him to do. And that's you can't think of a more horrible punishment for some. And he's talking about the deceptive tongue, but it actually becomes the person, right? It's not the tongue itself. It's the person who is wielding that tongue.
And you can go into James, when he talks about the tongue, when we're talking about this, I don't know, there's something about getting together with someone and talking through scripture, because I did not think about this the past week I've looked at it. What did your mom do? Well, I don't know what your life is like.
She did. She did.
Did she? Some of you might say, what are they talking about? There's like, oh, I know where they're going with this. Soap.
She washed her mouth out with soap.
Yeah.
One day she didn't have a bar of soap handy, and she used dishwasher liquid. and you couldn't get rid of it. It could not go away. Now I think people go to jail for this kind of thing, but in the
Yeah, back in
time,
the
you have to
day.
remember, folks, in the day, we didn't
Yeah,
have seatbelts in cars, and we used soap as a punishment. So,
yeah. Well,
uh,
a Christmas Story, that
yeah,
movie where they use Lifebuoy and it's like, oh, soap poisoning and all that. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
But
and he's just sitting there with that bar of soap in his
yeah.
mouth.
I mean that's what your mom might have done back in the day, but the psalmist is saying, what will God do? And these are a couple of things that he comes up with, uh, what God might do.
Forget the soap.
Yeah, yeah. And so now, he moves from that and talks about suffering in Meshech and living in distant Kedar. Uh, any insight on those two places, Curt?
I don't know anything about them. What I understood from my reading was that these are known to be places of war, places of unrest, and places where no one could be trusted.
Yeah, yeah, and,
Which, so you could say, today you could say, like, I don't know, Bloomington, living in far off distant Bloomington. Oh wait, that's kind of where you live. So let's choose another place.
yeah. And I can't think of any place, but if you think about Las Vegas, immediately you have images pop in. Las Vegas has a reputation. And for different people, that image will be different. For some, it's like, oh yeah, Vegas, we love it. Others are like, oh, that's just a place of depravity. So when you hear that, and I think for those reading this psalm, when they heard these two, there would be an immediate
Yeah.
image of exactly what this guy's talking about. And he talks about living amongst those people, whether he lived or not, there, I don't know.
Right.
But
Exactly.
But you can just think, when I have known a few people that have lived in Las Vegas, and the first question I ask them is, what's it like living there? Because it's different than visiting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What's it like to live there? And so for him, it was, painful, and it was a bit of suffering. And then he tells why. I'm tired of living in.
You're talking about the psalmist, not the person you asked about living in Vegas.
No. Yeah, the psalmist.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm thinking.
Sorry, I
really?
switched.
He had suffering and it was painful.
Well,
You switched.
I switched back to the psalm. Yeah, sorry about that.
All right, good. Let's make sure we know what we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
It pains me.
Yeah.
To live, suffer, pain, tired.
Yeah.
Really, really great words to help us key into the emotions related to this type of life, living with these types of folk.
Yeah, I had a thought. I had the same thought twice, and I've forgotten it both times because I'm trying to be present in our conversation.
Don't do that. Just keep moving. Just keep moving. We don't have enough time to be present.
Yeah. So, this whole. Well, I'm not going to try to figure it out as I talk. You ever done that, Curt? It's like I have no idea where I'm going, but I'm just going to keep talking until I get back.
I just do that all the time. That's right. We have a young woman that's a part of a group that we meet with, and she recently was telling us about how hard it is to live with her family because of this dysfunction in the family. And I mean, it brings her to tears every time she talks about it because she wants to have a relationship with her family that is of peace. And instead it's of chaos, and it's of lying, and it's of manipulation. And I thought about her as I was reading that this week. She's not alone. She's not alone, right? There are a lot of people who live in situations just like that, where, you're living among people. Apparently they hate peace because they do everything they can to stir up strife when you're together. And,
in seminary, there was one professor, and you might remember this, talk about crazy makers. Yeah. And I think that was an actual term with a definition, but I just think the word is very descriptive of a lot of folks. It's kind of like, what? Don't you want peace? Don't you want don't you want to have joy in your life? Because you keep choosing the opposite.
Yeah.
And, and the Bible talks about, why is there strife in our life and all of this? And it's because, or no, he asks, why do you not have what you want? Well, because you don't ask. Why after asking do you still not have it? Well, because you use it for your own purposes, your own pleasure.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
when we're about ourselves and other people are about themselves, there's always going to be that knocking together, two things coming together, which does not make for peace at all. And he's tired of it, just tired of it.
Yeah. Ah, that's great. Verse 7, another way to interpret "I search for peace" is "I am for peace." I maybe there's not really that great of a distinction, but if I'm for it, then I will promote it. I will try to bring it about. I will try to make that a part of my life. But when I speak for it, people just won't listen.
Yeah, there's a difference between, we talk about, let's be peacekeepers. There's a difference between peacekeepers and peacemakers.
Yeah.
And I also think you could use the term the peace bringers. And I think those are three different things. If you make peace, you're there and you're bringing peace. If you're a peace bringer, I think that's what Jesus does. If you look in the Gospels, especially after the resurrection, more than once he shows up and the first words he says is peace.
Yeah.
He brings peace. And one of the things that I say is wherever Jesus is, there is peace.
Yeah.
And so if there isn't peace, you might want to take a step back and say, where have I pushed Jesus out of this picture?
Yep. And so we're not just talking about, and you and I have been talking about just our own personal journeys. Again, if you're joining us for the first time, we don't talk about the passage itself until we sit down and actually turn on the record button.
Yeah.
But we've been talking about our personal journeys, and what is the theme even of today? Finding that peace, living in unrest or unease about where we are in the journey, and yet trying to find that center where we are centered on Christ, on God, that it actually brings that peace into us. When we know whose we are, we know where we live, then we have a lot more peace than when we don't.
Yes, and the Bible talks about the peace that passes all understanding, and I love this from Paul because I reinterpret that and say it's the peace that doesn't make any sense, or as my mom would say, don't make no sense.
Don't make no sense.
Yeah, just don't make no sense. Because it's those times where we shouldn't be peaceful at all, but yet there's this, it's almost like a peaceful presence, and it's the presence of Jesus, because Jesus is not just a peacekeeper or a peacemaker, he's a peace bringer, and he brings peace into those places, those distraught places. So that's my prayer for everyone watching this. I mean, the psalmist, he says, I'm for peace, I search for peace, but all they want is war. Well, there is one, the psalmist didn't know him at that point, but there is one who will not just bring the peace, he will not just make the peace, but he also brings the peace. And it's really, I think, what the psalmist was searching for.
That's beautiful. Man, this is just a great psalm.
It is. All of them really are.
But I mean, on the surface, as you read it, and this is the thing, if you read that once, it's okay.
Yeah.
But the more you spend time in that, and you really start to think about what is he saying, and how does that what's the question, the formative question that you bring to it? What is the passage saying to me?
Yeah.
How am I engaged in that passage? Then boy, it can change our entire perspective on that.
It sure can. Yeah.
I love that. And let's also take it another level and say, why we can take that and make that part of our own song of ascent, our desire to go to the holy place of God. And this becomes part of our prayer, our song along the way, to say, this is the life I live, but boy, I'm looking for so much more.
Yes. Hey,
I like that.
You can leave comments, and if you feel willing to be a little bit vulnerable, put in the comments, where's one place I need peace in my life? Or in other words, where's one place in my life I really need to ask Jesus to bring his peace to?
Yeah.
Maybe we can have some conversation surrounding this.
I would
Also,
love
if
that.
you enjoyed this episode, please hit the like button. It really helps us out. You can also subscribe to our channel to get notified whenever there's a new video dropping. We try to, drop them about every once a week or so. And we're just glad that you're on this journey with us, because it is a journey and we are on it together. We do not need to journey alone. Well, thank you, Curt.
Thank you, Dave.
It's been so great to be a part of you. And
it's not even new. Why do we keep doing that?
I don't know. I have no idea.
All right. Well, have a blessed week, and we will see everybody back here in about a week from today.
Amen. Well, we're so glad you
Did I
joined
tell
us.
you that I stopped drinking so much coffee?
No. And that was a perfect bring in, without.
Sorry, go ahead. That was.
Yeah, that was just.
Matter of fact, yeah.
Well, Curt,
I feel really bad about it, to be honest, that I just stepped right on your.
Yeah.
Come on, Dave, get serious. Let's do this.
All right.
I promise, no more.